this one works similar to the other one, up to a point where you're choosing your standard machine, the vehicle. Now, for our example, we just set one up here to be used. The wrap style, this hasn't changed either. It's kind of information, your material, laminate if there is one, etc. This is still working, showing the full size of the vehicles on this particular spot. If you go to the side panel details, it's showing you the overall size as well. And then you can pick particular panels, the rear, height, file, notes, how many, if there are any bleeds. It comes up with a square footage. Your scrap is based off of percentage once you start breaking it down into panels. So in this case, I have the rear panel, front panel, and a mirror. My passenger, now this is all being defaulted from the particular product, the car we pulled at this point. You can change any of it. Then I have the passenger, the hood. So it's got a bottom and a bumper, top of the hood. You can also kind of detail out what you want. You can say you're using the side panel or not using the details. And you can just kind of define. File, panel number, etc. Bleed, square footage, scrap area, total area, and roll length. You're just going through each side separately. Then that's going to be saved, showing how that breaks down. In the detail, it breaks out each side. If I had notes and files, it would actually print all of that as well.
And this would be on the work order?
Correct.
Okay.
This is the work order. This is still your estimate, but this is your work order. If we look at the actual how this is set up in the part itself, these are parts, our vehicles. This screen doesn't change. Yeah, this was the original one. But now we have a separate tab for each side that allows you to go fill in that information and save it with the vehicle. Any thoughts there? Or?
Yeah, that looks like that's going to be very useful.
Is that kind of what you were looking for anyway? Did we kind of get you where you wanted to be?
Yeah, that allows us to break it down. And no more than 4 panels?
It's 4 different size panels on each side at this point. Now, you can do as many of each of the same size, so I can do 2 of these and 3 of those, but it's 4 different sizes.
Gotcha, gotcha. Oh, okay, okay. I see. Yeah, that. I mean, I'd be interested to actually run it through some actual jobs and see how it works out. But yeah, that looks very useful.
So it still keeps your overall sizes like it did before, and you could just set up the overall sizes, go start your estimate, and then break it out from there when you know that information.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the idea as well.
Ben, this is Charlie. Do you have any real jobs that you might like to get the paperwork on, and we could, just go through these screens as you're looking through the paperwork to think if there's, if we've adequately covered what you need?
Can you repeat that?
Do you have any jobs that you've done recently that you might like to pull your paperwork on, whether it's your work order or just other documents, and look through that paperwork just to see, for a real job, how have we done in covering your needs?
Yeah, do you want to look for that right now?
Only if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, let me grab a work order.
Okay.
All right. Do you mind if I look at the panel detail screen?
Oh, not at all.
Is there any way I could control?
Sure. Make sure. All right, you should be able to take it. And those drop-down lists can be edited to what you want to put in there, as well as you can just type over them.
Well, it's usually either vertical or horizontal.
Well, the panel themselves. Like that list, with the placement. Like on my example, I just typed in mirror, but you could put it permanently in the drop-down list.
And this field is just informational?
That's correct.
Is this like a quantity, or what is this
Correct.
right here?
It's the quantity.
Do you think it would be helpful to name that panel quantity? Would that help?
Yeah, in production it would make more sense because quantity means we need to print 2 of them. Whereas
okay.
If it reads panels, that almost means like that's panel name 1. If I'm running the printer, it really doesn't tell me that if this panel is equals more than 1, that it doesn't really convey to me that I need to print more than 1 of them.
Okay. All right, we can make that change.
Whereas if it reads quantity, it's kind of like a red flag that means, hey, that means I got to print 2 of these.
I believe that's how it's printing. Actually, I think it just says 2, 18 by 24, etc.
Okay.
But we'll change the terminology here.
As we go through this, if you do see anything that the terminology isn't really clear, that would be helpful.
Okay. Now, when we adjust these bleed figures here, does that actually adjust the area and therefore the costing?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'm
it
not sure
adjusts the material.
Whether it's the vehicle wrap product or the roll sign print product, but we've got one product now that if we adjust the gaps and whatnot, it doesn't have any bearing on the amount of material used. When in real life, when we adjust gaps, it actually does in the real world affect how much. You know, if we put a
yeah, it should. It should in all the products. If it doesn't in one, let us know which one it is, and we'll try to fix it. Okay. Now, it only affects the material if, in theory, it affects the material, as in if you were going to scrap that extra 4 inches anyway on the top, and so a gap doesn't adjust that, it may not always affect material used, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the top and the bottom we take care of on lead in and lead out on the equipment side of things.
Right.
But the gaps, like if we put a 1 inch in between, if we're doing 3 3-inch circle decals and we do an inch in between them, then that's actually, for every decal, we're consuming 4 inches, not 3. So that's
Correct.
a pretty, when we're doing thousands of them, that's a fair amount of material.
And it should do that. If you have a product that isn't doing that, let us know, and I'll fix it for you.
Okay. And this is Rob?
Yes. Or we'll have it fixed for you. Peter will have it fixed for you, and he'll come to me if we
Let
need
me
to.
know.
But
Okay.
that's how they should all work.
By the way, while I'm thinking about it, it's going to come up today. I've got a meeting with my accountant. Who would be the go-to person on the accounting side of things for some? We're having some erroneous numbers when in our closeouts. I realize it's a different issue, but is there a person that I should contact?
Well, if you're having trouble, Ben, this is Peter. If you're having trouble with numbers in the closeouts at the end of your day, best bet as soon as possible is to get a call into tech support and have somebody view those numbers with you. But they're generally equipped there to see what's going on as to why you're having a discrepancy, which you shouldn't have.
Yeah, it's kind of I hate to say an ongoing thing, but they looked at it once and they found a bug that had to do with the time of the closeouts. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of an ongoing thing, and I'd kind of like to elevate to somebody that is kind of more or less a specialist on the accounting side of things. But I understand that's another issue. It's just something that's going to come up on my side of things. Since I have a meeting with my accountant today, she's going to know where we stand on that.
Okay.
Rob, do you still have control?
You should both have control,
Okay.
you'd think. They're basically all the same, just different sides. The and we told it it was a full wrap. That's why it's printing them all like that.
Yeah. No, I understand. Does this information here on, let's say we're looking at the, say we're printing other, does this information here carry onto the detail screen, or is it independent?
It does only in the sense that your overall height, width, and panel direction is this.
Okay, got it.
But then we're breaking it down into smaller chunks. So this is basically your overall size. Is that jumping on you like that?
Yeah, it's jumping to the other tab.
Linda, jot that down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will.
Thank you. I've don't have any idea why it's doing that. I hadn't seen that before.
Center. Center. So the order in which it's printing is actually 1, 2, 3, 4.
I actually think it's 1.
My assumption was 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I guess we should number those.
On the details, we've got
front panel, rear panel, and center. Front, rear, center. Yeah, Linda, jot down to number those. I think this may be a 1 through 4. I can see how that's going to make that a little easier. What I can make those in any order that you'd like. Is it better to do, you think, right, left?
Yeah, I would
Left,
think
right.
so. Because
Okay.
Let's say we only had 2 panels. If we only had 2 panels, I think anybody would do the top 2 rather than these 2.
Okay.
Well, if there was only 2, it would only print the 2 anyway. But if we're trying to do this in a logical progression, if we had 4 panels,
Right.
because the way I did it was the way they're going to fit, was the way they're going to print, the way they're going to fit on the car, and I'm reading this as a production person or as an installer,
Mm-hmm.
and they're out of order.
Sure. I think we need to number them either way we do it, so that they know what the order is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would make sense too.
Sounds good.
This looks good. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive as far as I'm concerned. If I'm running the printer, this all makes sense to me, and it definitely beats the heck out of guessing.
Mm-hmm. Great. I do have a couple questions for you, just because they've been spinning around, and I've kind of changed my thoughts on it, and wanted to get yours before we go to before release. Currently, how are you? You're doing cost-based pricing generally, correct?
Right.
Do you do contracts where you do fixed-based pricing at all, like police
Yeah.
contracts, things like that?
Yeah, we do, and it's kind of on my list to ask you guys if there's any way to do a hybrid where we can do both flat rate and or area and costing, because we do have contracts with wholesalers and whatnot, and they like to know. They would rather us err on the high side than and them know what the price is going to be before they even call me. A lot of people don't like to get a custom estimate on every little job.
Right, and that's kind of where.
What I'm having to do right now is I have to run the numbers based on costing, and then I have to click on the little red price thing. I have to do a price override and manually calculate the price, which is kind of a pain in the butt and defeats the whole purpose of the software. Because I can do that in QuickBooks.
Well, right now it should be able to do it either way, and that's kind of when we set out on this, doing the. Let me grab. I was going to remove the area and base fixed pricing off of this product. I haven't yet, because it really didn't save me any time to remove it, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought people are going to need it.
Yeah.
And the main reason is for that police contract, but you still need the details of each car to hold in for storage, yet you've got a fixed price that all their cars are going to be the same price.
Right.
And so that way you can put them all in, as like I've got the minivan details. I could say it's a police, Dodge Charger, or I could say it's a police, LTD wagon, and still keep these fixed prices or these area-based prices. The complication here is, are we complicating things by giving too much option? And I guess that's why I'm asking. So right now I can still go in and say I'm using a fixed base pricing and a full wrap is this X dollar amount. And that's what it will use no matter what else you do.
Yeah, no, I think that's I think it's good to leave it in there, and it's honestly I'm kind of in the minority on the wrap shops that are costing. Most of the guys I talk to are using area and or fixed, but you generally area just because it's most people don't want to put the effort, quite frankly, into the complications of costing a vehicle wrap because there's just so many variables.
Right.
But since it's kind of our main gig, it's important to us to make sure that we're costing accurately.
Okay. Currently, it's going to work in this estimate how we define it. So I define the vehicle itself, how it does the pricing, and that's what it uses here. I can do an area-based, cost-based, or fixed. Are just issues with this too much, as far as adding complexity. If I use area-based, it's going to calculate off my area. Fixed is just going to look back at those fixed prices. And cost is what we have.
Does roll sign print operate the same way?
Yes, except roll sign print only has an area or a cost. There's no fixed base pricing.
Gotcha.
Okay. And that's really about the only question I had specifically for you that we've kind of been going around on what we wanted to do there.
Can I look at something real quick?
Oh, feel free. Take control.
Which fields in here can be adjusted in the in the parts tab? What we find is a lot of times we want to change here in this window. We want to change a markup. The markups are not adjustable here, right?
That is correct.
Can they be?
No. You can overwrite the specific price from there or the specific costs from there or price, depending on how the product is set up, but not specific multiplier.
Okay, because it's deriving it from the part itself?
Correct.
Alrighty. That's a reporting thing.
Do you have any other questions for us, or Linda, did you have anything come to mind?
The only thing that I just wanted to ask a question on, Ben, on the estimate that you just put in, you had 3 that had the same sizes. Now, that was because you had 3 different files that were going to be printed 3 different ways. Is that why they were done that way, as opposed to just a quantity of 3?
Well, because there are 3 different files.
Okay. Yeah, that's
This,
what I thought. I just wanted to make sure on that.
this one side is comprised of file A, file B, and file C. But let's say that this car is multiple. Let's say we're doing a fleet. So if they're the same kind of car, then we would bump this. If we're doing 3 cars, we would bump this quantity to 3.
Okay.
So we would get 3 prints of file A, 3 prints of file B, 3 prints of file C, all because it's the same size car.
Let me clarify that. You would not need to change this here. It's still just one panel per vehicle. If you change this to 3, it will know that
Yeah.
means 1 each.
That's correct.
So this is if it's just one art image file that's going to do this. That's why I put this last, because I don't think it's going to be used that much because you're going to define each one by a different print. And that's kind of why I put the quantity last, just because I see it as you do, that each one of these is going to be different. It's just on that one occasion that you've got a big fleet truck or something that you may have one image file that's cutting it all up, and you don't want to put a million little pieces on the work order because it's one big image being cut a ton of different times that you would use that. So that was my thinking behind that, is how that would work.
Yeah, then that field may not even be necessary then.
The quantity. But it was really just since I'm limited to 4.
Yeah.
I felt that if you got beyond 4, the odds are 2 of them are going to be similar, or I could put file name 1 and 2 both in that file structure and say it was 2 because they're exactly the same. Now in this case, you've got your bottom one with a different bleed, so that is very specifically different. But the top 2, I could say it's 2 of these sizes, and in the file structure, type the first file name and then the second file name if I needed to squeeze them in.
Yeah, but honestly, the chances of getting two different panels that are exactly the same size pretty slim to none.
Yeah, I see that only in the really big trucks and things, where you're doing full sides of.
Right, right. Honestly, in those cases, though, it's we wouldn't be using this. We would let the RIP do the paneling.
Right.
It makes we would consider that if let's say we're talking about a tractor trailer or a panel truck.
Mm-hmm.
We would, as far as your software is concerned, we wouldn't even go into the details. We would consider that side one big rectangle.
And let it do its thing.
Because there's no obstructions.
Right.
So we would just let the RIP do the paneling on that. Makes our life a whole lot easier. We're asking less out of this software. The reason we need these details are for the passenger vehicles, where it's so complicated that we're having to do the paneling in the design phase. And my designer's giving me all these individual files for each side.
Right.
That's where this comes in.
Mm-hmm. Great.
But no, this looks really good. Anxious to see how this how it's going to work out. Do you guys want to upgrade our executable with this information in it?
Yes, we're going to do that. We're going. It's not the executable. I believe Peter will move this into your system with my help.
Oh, good.
I'm going to change.
This is all in the database?
It's in mine, and we need to put it into yours, basically.
Okay, but it's not a change in the executable. It's in the database, right?
It's in the database. Now, it does. Is this going to require? I don't know. I'll let Peter decide what version you're on and see if there's anything that would conflict. I don't think this is anything that would conflict with an older version.
Okay.
If you're not on the newest.
All right. Well, that sounds good. We do have some housekeeping issues that we would like to go over. It doesn't have to be with you guys right now, but if y'all could have
Sure.
someone schedule a call or something like that. Another thing that is extremely difficult to deal with, which is a real hindrance in us calling tech support, is that there's no way to schedule a call and the tech support inevitably always seems to call at the most inopportune times, either during lunch or at the end of the day or something to that effect. And it's it would be wonderful if we could, schedule a call for first thing in the morning, kind of the way Peter does it. That works out real well. When we moved into dealing with tech support, it's gotten to where we just kind of we don't even call anymore, because when we would call and schedule a phone call, it would always happen either at lunch or at the end of the day. It was always the most inopportune time, and there's no way to schedule a tech support phone call, which is really it's frustrating. It kind of needs to be a scheduled phone call, because it's never a quick fix.
Yeah.
I can talk to Brandon about that and see what we can do about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it where it is true that normally it's not a scheduled operation. It's a query-based system, and but I have seen it where where with a couple of days' notice, I've seen them work things out with other users before, where they will make an effort to either call first thing in the morning, a couple of days out, or something like that.
Yeah, and that would be fun. I'd much prefer to wait a couple of days and be able to actually make the phone call than have it, same day, but as I'm walking out the door or with a client or something like that.
Understand.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's say I've got a meeting or something, and tech support calls. Well, I can't take the call because I didn't know about the call, and and there goes my call.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I think it's something to think about. Maybe, something of a scheduled or first available option. And have scheduling out a ways, but that's something for them to think about.
Okay.
Well, Ben, can you think of anything else that we might have missed, or that you would like to see? Pretty much satisfy your needs.
Well, you don't want me to say the word thumbnail.
I'm sorry?
No, this is definitely a step in the right direction. I understand. I understand the complexity of doing thumbnails, but that would be wonderful. But I understand the complexities behind it. I'm not going to ask for that.
It can do one thumbnail at a time.
Yeah. Well,
our issue.
Well, here's why the reason I even bring it up is because there's a the view image option, or wherever that is in, I don't know if it's in, I think it's in roll sign print maybe, or is it in vehicle wraps?
Correct.
Under the design tab, isn't there an image option?
Yeah, you can add images.
Man, I'm gonna tell you what, that it really. It's kind of clunky, but it really makes a good-looking estimate. Or just having that little image there,
yeah,
for clients, it really does help connect the dots, and it really does add a professional look to it.
Yeah, you can do one. The main struggle we're having with images is multiple images on one thing, like
right.
To be able to show all these little pieces, all those images, and managing them and without taxing it. So right now we're limited to pretty much one image per line item.
Got it. Well, it's a good idea. I realize it's clutter in the database, but it does make for some real good-looking reports.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll make a note of that and see how we can look at that. Okay.
Well, I'm anxious to run it through its paces.
We're anxious for you to do that. We're finishing up our final testing internally. We'll make some of a few minor changes that we talked about today. And we will get with, Peter will get with you on a time that's convenient for you to input it into your system. And then what we would like to do is, once it's in your system, to shadow you again just to kind of watch you go through the steps, just to make sure there isn't something else that, as we're going through with an estimate and setting it up, that we should maybe look at.
Got it. Sounds good.
Okay, I would.
Another idea, which is independent of the vehicle wrap product, is a way for like a salesperson that's on the road to be able to do estimates. And when I brought this up before, I think to Dean, he says that remote desktop is the preferred way, and it really doesn't. Remote desktop isn't really the best way to accomplish that. Are you guys working on anything that would allow like a local version of the database on a laptop that syncs, where you could either dock sync back at the shop or have it live sync over a wireless connection, where somebody could take a laptop on the road and actually print estimates on the road or produce estimates and email them out? Because what's having to be done now is it's having to be a phone call back to the office, just because that's where your software is running.
To my knowledge, I don't know how you would sync two SQL databases. So I don't know that anything of that nature is in the works right now. But Ben, I know that when people take laptops out to the system, out into the field, one way or the other, they have to communicate back to the database, and that's typically remote desktop or some other connection back to the database.
What about a web interface where you don't have a local copy? You're connecting.
Yeah. I think you'll see that in future development down the road, but I don't think you'll necessarily see it anytime in the real near future.
Right.
But I think,
I'm trying to think of what. I know you guys have a competitor where it's entirely HTML based. The advantage to that is if you've got people on the road, even in house, it's browser based. So
sure.
That actually has merit, especially like if I'm at home or if I'm on the road or something. You just hit that outside IP address, and it's just like you're sitting at the office. It actually it has a lot of functionality to it. Just something to think about.
Definitely, and I think you'll see it move more and more in that direction in the next few years.
All right, sounds good. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate the effort and the time today.
We
Thanks, Ben.
appreciate your time, Ben, too, and we'll be back in touch with you once we make these final changes and get it in your system.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
All right, bye-bye.
All right, Charlie, Rob, Peter, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.